So I want to share a little bit about our method for getting kids to learn in a crash course piano in 8 days, well enough so that you can have your piano student stand up and lead worship in church in front of 500 people in just 8 days. Everybody asks us, how in the world do you do it? Well, I'm going to break it down for you, and it'll be the four phases we use across 8 days of lessons, four phases. Before I get into it, let me give you just a few assumptions. And that is, I'm assuming that as you're teaching, you're also exposing the kids to some kind of group worship time. We call it community time, where they're having fun, they're jumping, they're singing, they're dancing. The songs are being played well in a way that the kids are just internalizing these core set of like 4 or 5 songs that you're doing every day over and over again. And the second assumption is that you've already learned the TWPS scaffolding framework that we use at New City. The third is that the teenagers you're teaching to be the eventual teachers and who are going to be up on stage in 8 days are themselves, 13, 14 and up. They're not younger kids. They've developed some hand strength and coordination. And then the last assumption is that you are dedicating 75 to 90 minutes per day for music lessons. Okay, so with those assumptions in mind, I want to give an overview how you're going to, in 4 phases, get all of your kids from not having ever played the piano to being able to play. How in the world do you do it? Phase one is going to be setting culture and working on finger strengthening. So finger separation and learning the names of the notes, ready and safety position, all of that. Phase two is going to be really focusing on triad-driven songs. So blind man sat by the road and he cried. All kinds of simple songs that can be played with triads. Phase three is going to be teaching the kids how, instead of naming chords after letters, we can also name them after numbers. And so you'll be teaching number theory and chord patterns, like a 1-4-1-5 song. 4. And then phase four is going to be expanding the sound of the song by using inversions instead of triads. So instead of just going, you're going to teach them how to go. And so when you go through all 4 phases, finger strengthening and culture, to triad-driven songs, to number theory, to inversion-driven songs, you will have gotten the kids all the way ready to do songs up on stage in front of everybody. Okay, so phase one. Phase one is all about setting classroom culture, giving them the tools to play all the rest of the phases. So you're going to be teaching them some definitions. What are the names of these notes? You're going to be teaching the 5 parts of posture. You're going to teach ready position and safety position. You're going to give them kind of classroom management tools. And then you're also going to be working on finger separation and finger strengthening, because kids, they won't be able to like press different fingers down at different times. They'll want to kind of push them all at the same time. So you really be patient with them as they're learning to separate these fingers. And a good exercise for that is what we call 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2. Real slow though. 2, 4, 2, 4. So you'll really work on strengthening those fingers, and then all of that leads into Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, which is a perfect song for phase one, because you're building that strength of each finger, and you're learning a memorable song that they've probably already heard, and it's easy to remember. So you can break it into kind of 4 parts, Each part has 2 measures, twinkle, twinkle, little star. That's measure 1 and 2, part 1. And then part 2 can be how I wonder what you are. We have a whole video on that, so I'm not going to go into detail on that. But that's phase 1, classroom management and finger strengthening. Okay, so phase 2 is triad-driven songs. And in this phase, you're going to also teach some definitions. You're going to reinforce the definition of a note, which is just one key pressed at one time. A chord, which is any 2 or more keys pressed at the same time. That's actually a chord, according to the definition I just gave. But the main chord that we are going to teach is a triad. And a simple definition of a triad is just 3 notes every other note. We'll get into the more technical definition of a major third under a minor third later. But for now, to help keep it simple, 3 notes every other note. Skip this note, skip this note. And in this phase, we really want to teach good, correct fingering. You're going to also reinforce, wrists straight, fingers curled, and you want to help those kids develop the claw shape that can be a triad. And during this phase 2, we're going to teach them how to play triads on every starting key. So C triad, D triad, E triad. And by now, you should be sort of identifying some of the kids who might be willing to stand up, and you're going to teach them to count properly. 1, 2, ready, go. I think is the best way to do it. Instead of a 1 and a 2 and, no, just get everybody to say the same thing. 1, 2, ready, go. And make sure as they count the song in, it's at the same speed as the pace they're going to be playing. 1, 2, ready, go. C, 2, and switch. D2, switch. And if that's too quick, you could have them do each chord for 8 beats. Once they've done that, you're going to start giving them the basics of the song Blind Man, which is a very catchy tune. And according to our TWPS framework, let's go to P. This would be the parts of the song, the E minor to the D. And that'll be new for them that there's this F sharp in there. And that's part 1 of the song. Part 2 of the song could be, and that's going to be a harder chord because it's got 2 black keys in it, but they'll get it. And, if they want to use fingers 1, 2, and 3 on that one, I'm a little less strict. But you can put all of that together, especially as you teach the rhythm pattern, which can be described as bum, 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 bum. 7 claps. Blind man sat, rode, and he cried. And that will bring everything together, and they will have a triad-driven song. At that point, some of the kids may be able to add the left hand if they're good enough. If not, don't worry about it. Stick with the right hand. Also, I would say at this point, you could teach the song There's No One Like Jesus, triad song. There's no one like Jesus. Or if some of the kids have the capacity, you could even bring that second chord down to this F, which is actually more in line with the voice leading of that song. Any of the songs we do, you could teach them as triad songs. So you might spread phase 2 out over, the end of day 1 all the way till day 3. But you'll teach a handful of songs. All right, so phase 3 is number theory. And we have a whole separate video on this, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail except for to give you some hints on how to build on the first 2 phases. So watch the other videos on number theory. But what you want to do is you want to review the lessons we've learned in phase 1 and 2 about finger separation and all the warm-up exercises we've been doing in there. And now you want to say, hey, numbers can be used for something besides the numbers of your fingers. They can also be assigned to the number of the chord. So starting in C, this would be a 1. This would be a what? 2, a 3, a 4. and so on. Then you can play a game and say, everybody play a 6. And then what you're going to do is you're going to say, now let's build a triad off of each of those numbers. So a 1 triad could be this, a 2 triad, and so on. Then you could have some of the stronger teens start leading in the class, stand up, give us the 4 count intro, and then everybody, instead of saying the letter we're going to be playing, say the number. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 chord, 3, 4, 5, and 2 chord. Okay, and so then once you get that, you could have a little fun and mix it up. We're going to play a 1 chord to a 3 chord to a 5 chord. 5, 6, 7, switch. Right? Or more famously, you could say, everybody, let's do a 2, 5, 1. 3, 4, 2, 3, switch. 2, 3, stop. So once they've learned kind of what number theory is, then you want to take a song, one they've been doing, and give it numbers. A great one to start with is just There's No One Like Jesus. 1 to a 4 to a 1 to a 5. At this point, I'd love to have some of the kids not play the 4 up here, but play the 4 down here, because that's more in line with the song. So teach them the 1, 4, 1, 5. And now what you want to do is once they've learned that, you want to switch it to a different key. Let's say the key of G. So you're going to start that whole lesson over, but now in the key of G. Explain that G has 1 black key, an F sharp. And then you're going to build chords off of those triads, just like you did. Don't forget that starting in the 3 chord, we've got that F sharp. And the 5 chord has the F sharp. And the 7 chord. Have a kid stand up, 8 beats per chord, and so on. And then the third, the next part you're going to do is you're going to say, all right, let's do a 1 to a 3 to a 5. Oops. Or a 2, 5, 1. And then you're going to say, now let's do that song we've been doing. No One Like Jesus, but let's do it in the key of G. So we're going to start on the 1 chord. But now we'll go to the 4 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Or if some of them are advanced enough, you could play the C down here. So during this phase 3, you're going to take some of the songs you've been learning and just help them understand the idea of numbers. And visuals are really helpful in this phase. Up on the whiteboard or the chalkboard, or even if you just have a piece of paper where the kids can write down the numbers that are going with the letters, almost like a decoder. C is always a 1, D is always a 2, and now we'll switch keys. G is the 1. All right, now we're ready for phase 4. Oh my gosh, the kids are going to hate this phase, but they're going to get through it and it's going to sound so much better. It's the inversion phase. So, instead of playing all the songs we've been doing, blind man sat by the road and he grew, it'll be so much more fun to do. Way better sounding. So the way you can explain inversions, I would begin with continuing your work on definitions. You've already taught them a note, a chord, a triad. Now it's time to teach them an octave. 2 notes with the same letter, 8 keys apart. Or you could say 12 half steps. Oops, maybe we haven't taught them half step yet, but if you have shortest distance between any 2 notes is a half step, 12 of those, and you get to another C. That's an important definition because the way you explain an inversion is you say, let's take a triad, let's take the bottom note and take it away, and let's put it 1 octave higher. That is the first inversion, okay? But nobody wants to play the piano like this, so we actually have to learn how to do it with correct fingers. So finger 1, finger 2, and finger 5 on the first inversion. Now let's do the same thing and take the bottom note, put it an octave higher. But again, no one wants to play like this, so let's reorganize ourselves and do it 1, 3, 5. A good exercise to do once they get the idea of what a first and a second inversion is is to let them go at their own pace. Don't do it as a group exercise. Just say, all right, try to find the triad. Now try to find the first inversion. Now try to find the second inversion. Once they have that, you could add some rhythm and see if we could do it as a group. 2 measures, all right? Let's start with the triad. 1, 2, ready, go. C triad. Now you guys, you got to start thinking about moving that C to the top and using fingers 1, 2, and 5. Switch. 2, 3, 4. Now you're going to put the G as the bottom note. Switch. And so that'll take some time, but you'll get it. They'll get it. Once they learn inversions in one chord, you're going to add a second chord, F inversions, right? Once they get that, you might do G or E minor, which we're going to need for Blind Man. And then the fun part, switching between chords. So let's take Blind Man. It's this E minor second inversion to this D second inversion. And I really want to stress the idea of using the correct fingers, because 1, 3, 5 to 1, 2, 4 is just natural. The fourth finger is kind of resting on F sharp anyway. So if that's too hard for the kids, you're going to bring some magic and break it down, and you're just going to do any 2 notes, right? And watch the fingers. Are this correct, right? Thumb switches, but the pinky goes to ring. Or you could do these 2. 3 to 5, 3 and 5 to 2 and 4. Or you could do kind of like learning to play the drums. Take any 2 combination of 3 till you have them all. Once they have that, try to really get them to play the whole inversion. Blind man sat. 1, 2, ready, and blind man sat. And then the next part of the song, rode and he cried. So you can really take all of our songs, and instead of playing them in a boring way with triads, more spicy with the inversions. One last thing with the inversions is a very common inversion tool we use is this. This is the 4 chord, the F in the key of C, right? First inversion. That often goes to the 1 chord, second inversion, the C second inversion. And you notice that to do that well, it's that same thing in Blind Man where the pinky goes to the ring, the thumb goes down. But in this case, the pointer stays the same. So it's a great exercise to teach them this, which is also in a lot of rock and roll. Just a great groove. And then you can go from there to adding the 5 chord, which is a triad. And you know, triads, we've been saying our fingers 1, 3, and 5, but in this case, it could be fingers 1, 2, and 3 to keep steady with our theme of pinky goes to ring, goes to third, goes to pointer. That is used in so many songs. When Jesus say yes, nobody can say no. Okay, so that is phase 4 inversions. Now you've done phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. And each of these phases is 1 to 3 days, right? And sometimes you might even overlap phases a little bit, but by the end of 8 days, you will have at least half of your class playing inversions. Couple kids will be actually able to play inversions with the left-hand note. Oops, sorry. And some of the kids will just be able to do one hand, and some of the kids might still be stuck on triads, which is fine because it's only 8 days. We're going to spend the rest of the year catching up. The cool thing about it is these 4 phases can actually be laid out in terms of months. You could do 1 phase per month as the teens teach the younger kids who aren't able to pick it up as quickly. Or even phase 1 could be 1 month, phase 2 could be 2 months long. Phase three could be 1 month. Phase four could be like 3 months. I hope this has been helpful to gain a map, an overview of kind of how you can structure an 8-day boot camp, which is very similar for younger kids, how you could structure an entire year.